Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Hi everyone, this is Patty Conklin and Healing Within. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've just got an awesome guest. I've just been listening to one of his podcasts, so I've got 100 questions and probably more. But my guest today is Billy Atwell, and Billy's the founder and host of the Unshakable Self-Confidence podcast. What began as his attempt to understand the nature of fear and self-doubt in order to recover from years of violence and abuse is now an iTunes Top 300 show with thousands of listeners worldwide. He lives and continues his work in Chicago, and visit him at unshakableselfconfidence.com. And Billy, you're welcome, and you're in one of my favorite cities.
Well, yeah, it's one of my favorite. I've been living here for just over 20 years now. It's the longest I've ever lived anywhere, and I absolutely love it. And thank you, by the way, for having me on your show today. I'm super looking forward to having a conversation with you, and we can definitely talk about yoga too.
Yeah, that was a great show, considering I'm just getting ready to go on a cruise, and I did this last year and did yoga twice a day. And in that atmosphere, I was fine. But like you said, sometimes going into a yoga studio isn't always comfortable, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But tell me about you a little bit. What brought you on this path of unshakable self-confidence and really helping people understand the need for it?
Yes. So it started about 6 years ago at the end of a second relationship that I'd had that ended up being with, I talk it a little bit more extensively in my book, but I had been with someone for 15 years that was a really violent alcoholic, and that ended just 11 years ago. And so on this path of trying to deal with that and recover from that, and I got myself involved with another individual who was narcissistic and very violent, and that relationship, when I started to stand up for myself, I had made enough progress and understanding about myself and not being a doormat, if you will. I was, the response was me being thrown up against the wall and almost being strangled to death. And
wow.
Yeah, and I don't make light of that. It's just, it's been so long now, but that was a pivotal moment for me, because I didn't have any answers at that point, but I just had wondered, how did I get here? How did this happen to me? Because I'm a nice guy, I'm a good person. I always try to do the right thing. I'm not perfect like anyone. No one's perfect, but
Right.
And so a really good friend of mine, her name is Holly, she had recommended that I read this book by Joyce Meyer called Battlefield of the Mind. And because in it, Joyce had also suffered from abuse from her father and other relationships as well. And so that helped me to, I put my trust in her actually, because there was that similar thing. And this is where I started to realize that we get into these situations, not because we're bad people, but because we don't have the right mindset. Specifically, we don't really have any self-worth.
Right.
And that was the journey. And I started to read book after book after book. There was Claude Bristol's the Magic of Believing, and of course Napoleon Hill, and all these New Thought Christians from the early and mid 20th century. And I just started to do research on this concept of how we think about ourselves is how we're going to respond to the world, how our life is going to unfold, and to a certain degree, the kind of experiences we're going to have in life. And about 6 years ago, I wanted to start talking to some of these individuals that had written books, spiritual books, contemporary thoughts on neuroscience and meditation and all these things. And so I started a podcast.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was originally called Fear Not, and I just started interviewing people and talking about fear and self-doubt. And then about a year ago, I changed it to Unshakable Self-Confidence. Once I realized that there were other people like me out there who had been in these sort of situations and didn't know where to go, how to start, how to get out of it, how to change their lives. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow, that's wonderful. And it's so necessary because abuse can be very unconscious, subconscious. It can be very hard to pinpoint that you're being abused. I mean, we've got violent abusers, and we have people that really subliminally get in there and abuse. What's one of the first steps? And by the way, congratulations on moving out of that and being aware and bringing it to the forefront. But what is the first thing? Is it recognizable that you're being abused, or that you have a lack of boundaries or a lack of self-worth? What is it for the individual to take that first step?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience. And in that first relationship for 15 years, I knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. What I've learned is, and I don't know what your viewers, what their faith or anything is. And I don't believe in just strictly Christianity. I'm not one of those kind of Christians. I just think God is God. And
right. I agree. Yep.
Yeah. And, but in order to have any mastery in a relationship and to come to your sort of true self in a relationship, you've got to pick. And so I have chosen to trust Jesus. And so what I've learned from that and doing research as I dove deep into that, as well as with the Apostle Paul, is there's that intuitive thing. I've had guests on the show, they call it GPS system, and every sort of spiritual practice calls it something else. And it was there all along trying to get me out of that situation. I wasn't listening to it. I didn't have any faith in it. I was more looking in my circumstances and thinking that if I tried harder or I was better, or if I was more loving or more forgiving and all this stuff, that's just sort of a lie cycle. I would say the first step, and one of the things that I had to learn, was that you need to listen to that inner voice, because it is trying to guide you in your life and to get you out of situations and put you into better situations. And it's never going to happen until you can trust that voice and then take those actions that it is trying to say, do this or go there. And then, you wait for the next step, if that makes any sense. Anyone who understands the concept of the Holy Spirit. We're supposed to be led by the Holy Spirit for our own lives.
Right.
And
right.
that was a hard journey for me to do. So And I think, too, in conjunction with that, you really have to understand that your thoughts are crucial and critical, and you need to start observing your thoughts and writing them down and seeing how you really think and speak about yourself, because it'll just it's a hard situation to be in, Patty.
It definitely is. It absolutely is, because one of the things that I talk about, intuition or following your thoughts, because for me they're one and the same, is that we have the thought and then we attempt to self-analyze whether or not it makes sense, and to allow ourselves to get out of the fear mode. And the problem is that we analyze it according to our past patterns. And so a lot of times we become dismissive of our own thoughts, because we feel like, well, if I follow this, what's next? The unknown becomes so overwhelming that they're like, well, I'll make a little shift, but not a big shift. And it's that listening to the thought. It's listening to that intuition that I think, I tell people I follow my intuition instantly, but that doesn't mean I don't analyze it for the next 3 days as to why I just did what I did. But I've got to follow the thoughts of what's a pattern to move me out of a place where I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or that I know it's not healthy for me.
Yeah. If I can add to that, because that was part of my research, is that we get into these negative thought patterns and cycles in relationships because we have a negative self-image, and that negative self-image has thoughts too. So really importantly, in order to understand and to know which voice to listen to, because one's negative and one's positive, you've got to sort of step back and detach yourself from thoughts. And that's a process. It didn't come quick or easy for me. I'm just going to, be honest. But
sure.
You've got to remember that you aren't the thought. You've got to disassociate yourself. And as like Buddha said and Jesus said and even the Apostle Paul, thoughts are external. They come from a stream of consciousness, and it's our job to, like you were saying, sort of analyze, step back and see, is this thought really a negative thought that's trying to keep me in fear, or is this a positive thought that's trying to elevate me and lift me up into a higher spiritual realm, or to get out of the dead end that I've, let fear drive me into, that kind of thing. So that takes some time too, but that's a lot about what I write about in my book and what we talk about in the show is you've got to get to the core root first and foremost.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to make any progress with thought patterns or anything.
Yeah. I always say that fear is forgetting every available resource, and it's that piece of God that's inside of all of us. And sometimes we need to. One of my cues when I was a child growing up in an alcoholic family was getting into a closet and being as dark as I could, because then I could see the light inside of me. And I knew that if I followed that, then I'd be safe, that if I was paying attention to that light. So it's, for me, it's forgetting every available resource, and that's what's inside of us. And I really thank you for sharing your history a little bit and how you reached that. And we're going to move into that more as we come back from break. But folks, this is Patty Conklin with Billy Atwell, and you can find Billy at unshakableselfconfidence.com, and we'll be right back.
Patty Conklin grew up in Brooktondale, New York, with a unique ability. Unlike others, she could see how the vibration of words and emotions affected the physical body. She discovered how to release stored emotion and facilitate healing. This began today's Conklin method of cellular cleansing. The private practice grew with tremendous results, as did her reputation. More and more people sought her out, bringing her into the home for healing. She soon realized she could even teach this to others, and they could shift perception and thus prevent illness from occurring. Patty Conklin quickly became a frequent keynote speaker, and she developed a curriculum for teaching the Conklin method of cellular cleansing. For more information, visit pattyconklin.com, PattiConklin. PattyConklin.com or call 404-474-0086. That's 404-474-0086.
Mission Evolution is dedicated to the well-being of the planet and animals, as well as the evolution of humankind. One major factor threatening all three is increasing toxicity. Heavy metals and other environmental toxins are poisoning our bodies, deteriorating our brains, blocking our spiritual connection, and shortening our lives. Yet these poisons are extremely difficult to remove. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and I recently became aware of a product created from the marriage of nature and nanotechnology called Vitality. It's formulated from zoolite, whose crystalline structure binds toxins, gently carrying them out of the body. The light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. Clear your body, shine your light into the world. Visit vitalityhappens.com for a 20% discount. Enter code PATHHOME.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hi, everyone. You're with Patty Conklin, and my guest today is Billy Atwell, and I'm just really enjoying his thoughts and his philosophies, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. So Billy, how do you tell the difference between forgiveness and unconditional love, or is there a difference between those two?
No, there's not.
Okay.
Forgiveness is, by its very definition, in Webster, and I'm all about looking up words, and it means to cease to feel resentment against. And so a lot of people think, this in my research and my own personal journey and a lot of the interviews that I've done, forgiveness, most people have a tendency to forgive and they use it as a weapon, like, I've forgiven you, aren't I so good? That sort of ego trip. And that's
right.
Not what forgiveness really is. Forgiveness and unconditional love are in the same, because you allow that person to be the way that they are, even if they cause offense, and you don't hold that against them. Dealing with, being in abusive relationships, and a lot of people, I don't know what your experience is, but there's a lot of victim mentality, and I went through that myself. But that in itself will keep you trapped in that negative condition and will perpetuate more of those situations in your life. And that was a hard one to do, because, I've was almost strangled to death. I've been in very violent situations with people that were supposed to love me. And so, to forgive someone to that and to let all of that go and to never hold it against them again, it's a tough thing to do. But, and this is where people get tricked, because then they think, well, then you allow them back into your life. And that's not the case. Forgiveness and unconditional love is not the same as letting someone who's treated you very badly, whether minor or very violently, in your life. That's not what it means. Right. Forgiveness means is that you hold nothing inside of you, inside of your spirit, against them. You literally let it go. I know you seem to me like you understand the Bible a little bit. You're supposed to give away the ashes for the crown of glory. Jesus talks about it in Mark. If you want to use words for power to the law of attraction or any of those kinds of things that, that are in the Bible as well. Right after it doesn't get talked about, but the very last clause in Scripture 26 is like, you've got to forgive, because if you hang on to that, that's a negative energy that's going to poison you. A lot of people think that if you, hold that unforgiveness and that you're punishing them, they don't really care.
That's right. They don't.
They don't.
Very true.
Yeah, if they cared about you, they wouldn't have treated you that way. It's
to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about you. And that's what I found. Jesus was talking about, you don't forgive people or love people because they deserve it. You're doing it because it's what's going on inside of you is absolute paramount and number one priority, because we're supposed to be these vessels for God. And if you live in anger and judgment and resentment, you're blocking the door for God to come through into your life and to do what you're on this earth to do. And so forgiveness it's tricky. It took me a long time, like I said, but that's what I've learned. It's this thing that you just let it go so that you are in perfect alignment with God for you and for your life, because at the end of the day, that's all we have.
That's all that matters. I mean, one of the things that I teach, and I think we're talking the same language here, is forgiving is not condoning. And it doesn't mean that we have to walk the same path. But if we truly believe in God and we truly believe that our soul is walking the path that God has ordained for us, or preordained for us, then that individual or individuals are also walking their own path. And there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that they are walking a path that is meant for them as a soul. So when I ask people to forgive people who have abused them in their life and so forth, I'm asking them as a soul level, let it forgive, because if you hold on to it, what you're saying in essence is that I don't trust God to be in alignment with that person. And the bottom line, just as you said, it comes back to what our path is with God. And I teach about the power of our words and how when we're using words, every word goes into ourselves. And so if I'm going to be angry at someone or not forgive someone, I need to remind myself I am not doing anything to them. They don't care. What I'm doing is harming myself, and that's not okay. It's better for me to understand that my growth is between myself and God, and not with anyone else. That pinpoint it?
Yeah, to go back again, I mean, some people use forgiveness as a weapon to say, I'm so good because I forgive you. There's still that you're still judging the other person bad. And I think if Jesus, who didn't judge the woman of being stoned, judgment, and I don't even think God judges us. I think that's just sort of a religious.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'll jump on that bandwagon. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I've learned from studying other spiritualities, like the Hindus, when they bow and greet you, it's because they're recognizing and celebrating that the divinity in you. Mm-hmm. Because that's what Jesus was talking about. We are all physical manifestations of God. So you don't know what's really going on with that other person. And like you said, you don't have to condone it.
Right.
You don't have to let it in your life. But that person is, essentially a child of God, at the very least, in terms of like how I'm trying to express it. But that's God manifest too. But usually what happens when we do that, and you can attest to it, it seems like when you live in fear, you cut off that knowledge of the light of your true nature.
Yes.
And we all do that. So the best thing to do is to forgive them and realize that they're just in probably greater fear and torment than you. Mm-hmm. And just forgive them and at the very least walk away. I think we have a tendency to try to fix and to judge and to try to make the world
so true.
Space. Yeah. And we can't fix the outside world. I think Gandhi said it best when be the change you wish to see in the world. And that's all we really have control over, right? Is how are we responding? What difference are we making in the world. And it's not about trying to change people or tell them they're wrong or correct them or anything. It's about you. And Jesus said it too. Why do you stare at the splinter in your brother's eye when you have a beam of timber in your own?
Yes. I mean, I tend to look at it this way when I'm looking at myself as to whether or not I'm in judgment of someone else. I look at it between the difference of judgment and discernment. And judgment means that I have an emotion or an expectation attached to the end result. Discernment means that I can look at that person and realize we're not walking the same path. And it's okay to let go. And it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just we're not walking the same path. And so I'm walking a different path. And I think if we can stay out of our ego and stay out of that place of, like you said, well, I'm forgiving, look at me. It's not about that. It's about walking away, letting go of an emotional attachment or an expectation to the end result, like you're going to get something in return if you forgive that person. And I really think it's not about that. It's really looking at our own souls and realizing what path we are taking.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you just slightly because I think we do something. I think we get a better life for that. And I mean, and that in itself shouldn't be. Well, I mean, maybe it is an incentive. I don't know. I don't really have the answer on that. But I've noticed that when you do walk in that, then at least for me, so, on the beginning of this journey, Patty, one of my first prayers that I think I was really conscious of praying at this beginning, I just wanted to be the chill dude in the room. That's how I put it, like Jesus in the middle of the storm. To me, that seems to be the ultimate. And that's what Jesus was talking about. You want this is how you get it. And ways to get it, and it is to stay out of judgment. And every time I start to feel judgment, I can feel that squeezing inside of me, and I have to make a conscious decision about what's more important. The satisfaction and even probably my righteousness, if you will, to use that word, of judging them correctly, or my internal peace. And I think it's a choice, and I think you do sort of, I don't think reward's the right way, the right word to express it, but you do get something out of it for sure. Yeah. If nothing else, just super calm, peace, and fear dissipates.
Do you think we get serenity out of that when we can stay in that place of calm and non-judgment? I tend to think of it as serenity, of just that all-encompassing feeling, not joy, not love, not everything else, just a serene kind of existence. I don't know how to frame it either.
Yeah, I would say serenity is a good choice of words. For me, when I meditate, I always sort of meditate on the concept of be still and know that I'm God. I think there's that concept of just standing still internally on a spiritual level and just realizing that you're really not in control. Like Jesus said, we're just vapor and mist. We're here today. We're gone tomorrow.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Even you have the power, and the abilities that are, God, it's like everything is mine and what's yours is mine. And I am manifest. I'm made glory,
Good. When we come back, we'll continue that thread. Folks, this is Patty Conklin and Healing Within, and my guest, Billy Atwell.
Audience, if you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Join Patty Conklin and Healing Within Radio each week. More than entertainment, Healing Within offers educational, useful tools for everyday life. Listen for help overcoming fear, anxiety, and depression. Patty knows about eliminating cancer, MS, dementia, Parkinson's, and a host of illnesses that we face every day. Life can be good. Life is good. All you need are simple tools to start changing your life. Start right now by visiting pattyconklin.com, PATTICONKLIN. No matter where you are in the world, you can work with Patty through Skype, phone, or in person, visiting one of her retreats in Georgia. Visit pattyconklin.com today or call our offices at 404-474-0086. That's pattyconklin.com or call 404-474-0086.
Coming soon to the X Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net.
Hi everyone, it's Patty Conklin and Healing Within, and my guest today is Billy Atwell, and I'm loving our conversation. Got to be honest, it's something that is so critical for everyone, and not just because of the age that we're in or the culture that we're in or whatever. It's a life of existence and how we choose to live it. I'm kind of fascinated with the whole concept, and certainly I work with my own forgiveness and discernment and so on, and I know you have as well. But what about the critics who will come back to me, and maybe they've come back to you, about if you are forgiving and you're staying in that place of peace, are you really getting anything done in this world? Are you being productive? Are you going anywhere, or are you just sitting on the sidelines, staying in a place of peace? What do you think about that?
I've got a very definite opinion about that.
Thank you. Let me hear it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. One of my, Gandhi, Jesus, and Buddha are like and Luke Skywalker, to be honest. These
Mine
are like
too.
my.
Yeah. Put Luke in there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're sort of like my heroes and my inspirations and like my aspirations of what's possible, particularly I think as, being a man. But Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. And that took me a long time because, as we were talking before, a lot of people try to fix the world. I'll change the world. I'll make the better world. Then I'm going to feel good about myself. I'll feel better when the world has changed. And that's backwards. And so what happens, and what I've discovered and through prayer and meditation and experience, is that when you become that change, when you, like what Jesus is saying, quit focusing on the splinter in your brother's eye and be more concerned with removing the timber in your own eye. When you do that, you are changing the world, because there's one less person in the world who resides in fear and self-doubt and negative energy. You're living in light. You're living in a positive sphere. And just your very existence in that energy pattern has already changed the world. You're already And I mean, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't help people and charitable things, but I think, that's a step ahead of what really needs to happen first, which is to really, understand who you are, work on yourself, and change that negative self-image route that I talk about, an inherited negative self-image route, and get back to sort of that one that we were born with, the divine origin positive self-image route. And then when you do that, you start operating from that, and you've already changed the world. You've already made a huge impact on the world.
How do people get to that place of understanding? I mean, I think that it's a continuation of our everyday breath of reminding ourselves that be the change that we want to see the world. But people who are in abusive situations right now that are listening to this, people who are having real struggles with self-worth, or moving on to a different aspect of their life. How do we help them get there in understanding that it's okay to move forward in a different path?
Well, from my own research, and with the interviews that I've done and through my own experience, and everyone has one. It's again and I talk about it in my book, and we talk about it on the show. It's an inherited negative self-image. It's not what we're born with. We're born in we're created by God. We have this thing. We're the living expression of God, as is all things on this planet and in the universe, the known universe and beyond. But what happens is that this negative energy that exists in the world gets passed down to us. And it happens in our childhood, and it's usually passed down. I got mine from my stepfather, and we accept that as who we really are. We forget ourselves, and then we allow that to take root within ourselves, and that starts to manifest. So you've got to deal with that first. You've got to find the root, because another favorite guy of mine, Henry David Thoreau, and this is how it set me on the journey. There's a really great quote. He's like, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who's striking at the root." And most people try to do the quick fixes, like 5-second rule, to calm yourself down. Or
right.
And we spend a lot of time and energy working on shopping, negative shopping behaviors or food behaviors and all this stuff. That's not the issue. Mm-hmm. The issue is that core identity root, and you've got to find out what the negative one is that you've been given, and then you've got to replant, actually, that image that you and God are one. And you start to build and defeat that, and you change that. And you were saying before, and I made the mistake of this. I thought, I've understand this. I've kicked it. I never have to deal with it again. No.
No, it's an everyday event, isn't it? I find it.
Yeah, you'll constantly be climbing the mountain. As the Apostle Paul put it, he said that he made no pretense of saying that he has reached the final destination, but rather that he continually strives toward that goal, and that he lets go of the past.
Yes.
And that, to me, was a big, helpful thing. It's, to me, and not that I think that anyone who doesn't do this is not successful, but really, you're already spending a lot of time and energy in a negative sphere. You could be spending the same amount of time and energy in a positive sphere and have a better life.
Isn't that, I mean, that is just so truth. And when I think about it, I mean, when I think of negativity versus positivity and the idea of continually moving towards our positive existence, it's so easy to destroy something. I mean, it can take seconds. It can take minutes to destroy a lifetime, but it takes daily awareness to create the positive lifetime. And so many people just don't want to do that work. It just feels like at times their story, sticking to their story in the negativity is so much easier than taking that step towards the positiveness. And I just encourage anybody who's listening it's so much, it may feel like more work in the beginning to reach that positive stance. But as you move into it and realize it's a daily basis, it is so much more serene than staying in that negative. What do you think?
Yeah, if I can add to that.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie. It is painful to move from a negative sphere to a positive sphere because it's a lot of work. Because I think, you have to use the natural laws, and physics is a natural divine law. And when you're stuck and you're static, in order to build momentum and to get energy to move, it takes a lot of fuel, a lot of energy. The way that I try to help my clients and, the listeners of the show is that to use the analogy of the playground merry-go-round, right? Mm-hmm. When you get on, it's stuck. It's hard to push, right? You've got to really lean into it and push to get that merry-go-round going around and around. But when you do that, and if you stick with it, what happens is that you'll notice that it starts to pick up speed, and then you jump on. And then all you really have to do for the rest of your life is once you've broken out of that negative energy gravitational pull and put yourself in the positive, is get it started rolling, and then just put your foot on the ground and just sort of push every once in a while to maintain the momentum of the positive sphere. It will take a lot of effort and energy to switch, but when you're there, it becomes this maintenance thing, which you're already doing, but in a negative context. And it becomes habitual. And like it says in the Bible, you've got to constantly renew your mind daily.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's all you have to do is spend 5 minutes every day in the morning going, I'm not going back to the way that I was. I don't have to. No one can make me do it. I'm a child of God. I have all these wonderful things. And today will be the way that I choose to make it. And no one can tell me what to do. No one can tell me how to think, what choices to make. And then it becomes easier. That becomes your habit. But you've got to change your habit, and that will require work.
Right. One of the things that I teach, and we can talk about this when we come back, because sometimes I get flack for it and sometimes people understand it. But one of the things I say is life is meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. When God gave us life, he didn't give us meaning to life. And so there's no one on this planet who can make you feel angry. And there's no one on this planet who can make you feel love. Those are choices that we have in the moment of every event that takes place in our life. We have choice. And so many people, it seems, and I think there are many of us, and me at times, get into the victim mode. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. And it's like, no, there's always choice. There's always choice. And, but we're the ones who are going to put the emotion to the event. And, if we choose to make, let's say we had a negative experience in our past, we learned something from it. Something positive came out of it. And so if we focus on the positive of that event instead of the negative of it, then we're continuing to move forward on a positive, in a positive state. So kind of leave it at there. Think about it during the break, and we'll come back and continue on. You can find Billy at UnshakableSelfConfidence.com. Is his website, and I encourage you to go listen to some of his podcasts. They're really fantastic and very thought-provoking. So this is Patty Conklin and Healing Within, and my guest, Billy Atwell, and we'll be right back, folks.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by rel-mar, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to rel-marzulli.net. That's rel-marzulli.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Hi, everyone. This is Patty Conklin and Healing Within, and you're coming back to my wonderful guest, Billy Atwell, and I'm going to be listening to more of his podcasts. I'll put that out there right now. But Billy, what do you think about the choice of meaning in life?
Well, I might slightly disagree with you in the sense about meaning of life. I don't think we know what the meaning of life is. I mean, clearly, God is constantly creating and doing wonderful things all the time. I think we should get to the point where we just appreciate it and be in awe of it. I don't think we need to understand the meaning of life, and that's a lot of people. I wish I knew the meaning of my life.
Right. I wish I knew what I was supposed to do. Yeah.
And I've been there. And let me just tell you from experience, just let it go, because we will never know.
That's right.
I think in terms of choice, and again, this is something that I had to deal with, and I had to face myself in the mirror and to do it. But, you were saying choices in life, and it says very clearly in the Bible, I set before you life and death, now choose. Now, the things that I've gotten out of that is that, first of all, we have a responsibility to take personal responsibility for ourselves and our lives.
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of people do that.
I agree.
I think the other important thing that doesn't get talked about that is that it's a choice. It's a gift from God. There's no judgment. You want negative life? You want a positive life? I don't care.
Doesn't matter. That's right. It doesn't matter to God. You're making a choice. Right.
You're making a choice. I'm not judging you. I'm not, I'm going to love you unconditionally, and I'm going to give you exactly what you ask of me. So why not choose the better life? But
I so agree, because it's hard for people to understand that, and I think for various reasons they want to be told. A lot of times they'll call for a consult and just tell me what to do and I'll do it, and it's like, well, no, take personal responsibility. What do you think you should be doing? You tell me what your options are, but I think that it's moving people towards, and all of us. Towards that place of understanding that we do have the ability to make it a positive space, and we can choose to stay in the negative. Wow. I mean, it seems like such a simple concept, and yet it's not.
It is a simple concept. It's just very difficult for us to understand and comprehend because of the way we're raised. Through negative behavior, people tell us we're terrible and life sucks. And and I think too, traditional Christianity, and I don't mean like maybe the New Thought Christians or anything that's going on now, but the dogmatic side that comes from sort of that early Roman Empire where it was like, thou shalt not, and you are a horrible person, and all this stuff that, still sticks with us in a culture. That's hard. That's hard to step out from that. I was not raised Christian, and even I had to deal with that.
Right. You are triggering a memory for me of my first time that I walked into church. I walked up a mile and a half up the road by myself at the age of 7 to go into a church, and I'd never been to one. And it was a Northern Baptist church with a Southern Baptist minister.
Uh-oh.
And I remember sitting down in the pew because I was late, because I was 7 years old and I walked there. And he was pounding the pulpit and he said, "You're all sinners." And I remember being 7 years old sitting there going, "I'm just a kid. What have I done?" And just, that self-doubt hitting me, because that was the first thing that I heard coming from him. And it took me years to realize what he was saying. But boy, as a kid, did it ever impact me?
Yeah, I had a really great guest. She was a recurring guest on my show quite a bit. She was one of my favorite, and I'm doing air quotes here, Christian, represented the show. And I was being really honest, as I usually am on my, I shouldn't say usually, as I am on my show.
As you are, yeah.
Yeah, and I was having a real hard time about really reading the Bible and doing my research and, seeing what Jesus was saying in Mark and stuff, but then seeing the non-relationship into Christianity. And she was like, well, why not you just throw out the bathwater, but not the baby?
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I started to really dive deep into where do these things come from. And they're not from Jesus. They are from men who try to create religion and, power and struggle and greed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And because Jesus never said, you're an awful, horrible sinner, you're going to burn in hell. He says, we are one with God, and we have these powers. So I was like, am I going to trust Jesus, the wisdom of Jesus and his teaching, and what other men throughout the entire history were saying the same stuff? I'm like,
right.
Or am I going to, this group that's trying to control me, and, and I'm like, So I made the decision. decision.
I think it's so important and really critical, because one of the things that I'll say is, maybe you like going to church every Sunday, and that's wonderful. But understand that whoever you're listening to is creating the interpretation of their feelings about what a scripture says. And one of the things I talk about in my book is a dear friend of mine who was a rabbi and was in a concentration camp, and another good friend was a Catholic minister. And the three of us would sit down and take one piece of scripture, and we could argue it for hours, just one piece of scripture, because we had different histories of what we thought it meant. And I think that that's a really critical piece, is to do your own research, to do your own reading. When I was a kid, I was convinced I was going to be a minister when I grew up. And that's all I wanted, was my own congregation and be a minister and do whatever. And God had different plans, and I chose a different path, and it's been all good. But I think it's really important to understand that we can read one scripture, and I do like it. I don't know if you find it this way, but when I'm listening to something Buddha said and something that Jesus said and something that Gandhi said, and they're all in synchronicity, that tells me something really important, that it's something that I want to really analyze for myself and normally put forth into me.
Yeah, well, I mean, the word prayer and meditation are very similar, and to meditate is where you're placing your focus. One of the scriptures that I use in my courses and in my book, when you start to nurture that new divine, inherited self-image that we were born with, is I use 1 John 4:17, which is, as God is, so are we in this world. When you stop to think about that every day just for 5 minutes, how could that not be transformative about who you are and what you're capable of doing in this life?
Yeah. Well, also understanding, I think, and being okay with a course correction. I remember years ago when I worked at Laubach Literacy, I was overseeing women's literacy programs in 30 countries. And one of the stories that Frank Laubach used to say was when he met with Gandhi and wanted to bring literacy into that region. And Gandhi said that the women didn't need it. And that the men could be taught, but the women didn't need it. And Gandhi, within a few weeks, sent a telegram to Laubach telling him he was wrong, that women needed to be literate as well as men, and that he wanted to bring the program in. And it's one of the things that I love about the teachings of Gandhi or Buddha or Jesus is the ability to sit back and make a decision, and the ability to sit back and go, nope, you know what, I'm going to change it up a little bit.
Yeah. And if we can go back real quick on the concept of choice and taking personal responsibility, one of my favorite letters that the Apostle Paul ever wrote was to the early Roman church. And, we were talking about sort of dogma and rules and regulation and like this, you're a sinner, you're awful, you're terrible, you're going to burn in hell.
Right.
In Romans, his letter to the Romans in 7:6, he talks about that we have ceased all intercourse with the law, not because it's bad, it's good, but because when you engage in the law, you set up automatically, because we live in a dualistic world of negative and positive, you set up sin. And he's like, if I had never known the law, I would have never have known sin. And then he was like, we are not to cease, we're not to be led by the law anymore, but rather by the Holy Ghost and our own individual plan that God has for us. And I don't think that gets taught in church. It's like, you must do this, you should not do that.
Right.
Really, the only person, and I don't mean the word person literally, because I don't think God is a man with a beard.
Right. Sitting up on his throne. Yeah. I agree.
Jesus said God was energy and spirit. And is that the only thing or person, for lack of a better word, is God, what knows is best for you. So go directly to the source.
Yeah. Totally agree. Agree. It's so important. It's and one of the things that we talked about early is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, quote, religion you're following, because my belief is they all take us back to God. And so it's not about a right or wrong path. It's about taking a path, whichever one you choose, to lead back to God. So
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Patty. It's just that's in my book. I use the expression.
No way.
I use the expression God is a freeway. And so like Jesus and Buddha and all these other people, they're on-ramps.
Yep, absolutely.
And so we're not supposed to get stuck on the on-ramp. A lot of people will tell you need to stay on the on-ramp. But the whole point is like all these men throughout history have been saying, this way works.
Yes.
Just trust me and take it all the way through, and you too will get on the freeway of God. And that's your destination is not the on-ramp, it's the freeway.
Thank you so much, Billy. I appreciate you being on. Folks, this is Patty Conklin and my guest, Billy Atwell. And Billy, I hope you'll come back. And folks, have a great week. We'll see you next week.